Hello, this is Kim Ki-won from Richgo. These days, understanding the supply and transaction trends week by week has become a very important point. As I always say, there is a very high possibility that a turning point will finally occur in September. So I believe it is a crucial perspective to consider whether the current upward trend in this hot real estate market will continue, or, as I have always mentioned, whether it will somewhat slow down starting in September with the implementation of the stress DSR. And in relation to this, on September 28, I will be giving a real estate outlook for the end of this year and next year. So, for those who are interested, there is a link to register for the lecture in the pinned comment, and by September 28th, the contents I have been forecasting will likely become visible in the data, revealing to what extent they align with reality. I believe this is a very important point in time, which is why I prepared this Outlook lecture. It would be nice to join on Saturday, September 28th. First, let me share the most recent data, and I will tell you exactly when this data was released. This data was released on August 16th by the KB Real Estate Data Hub. And when was this data collected? The data was compiled on August 12th. And to compile this data, when is the data from? It is from before August. So, the data collected from August 5th to August 11th is being compiled, and it will be released on August 16th. Currently, it is August 20th, and I am recording this broadcast. Therefore, the supply and transaction trends being discussed here can be considered as the trends for the second week of August. First, let's take a look at Seoul. It's a topic of interest for many people. The bar graph shows the supply data for Seoul, and as you can see, it has slightly moved to the right. What does it mean that it has moved to the right? The transaction supply has improved compared to last week. Now let's look at the reasons for this. What do you see? The selling pressure indicated in blue has increased a bit and then decreased, right? So, has the number of sellers decreased? Now, has the buying power increased? This red line represents the number of buyers, but has it increased? Not at all. It is almost similar to last week. What does this indicate? Buyers are no longer increasing. The selling pressure has slightly decreased, which has improved the transaction supply compared to last week. Additionally, the demand for Johns in Seoul is still gradually increasing. And I believe that these trends can continue to rise until September. However, starting in October, the supply of proven properties will significantly increase. Therefore, I forecast that the demand for Johns in Seoul will decline again from October or November. Now, let's take a look at the supply trends in Gyeonggi-do. In the case of Gyeonggi-do, it has improved slightly. It has gotten better compared to the previous week, and the reason is that the selling pressure has decreased, the number of sellers has reduced, but what about the buyers? They have decreased. The number of buyers has actually decreased compared to last week. As a result, the number of sellers has also decreased, which is a positive development. In both Seoul and Gyeonggi-do, buyers are currently stagnating or even declining, while the demand for Jeonse is still steadily rising. This time, let's take a look at Incheon. In the case of Incheon, the supply has decreased, right? So, while the previous week saw a decline in Seoul and Gyeonggi-do, Incheon saw an increase. However, looking at the data this time, it seems that Seoul and Gyeonggi-do have improved a bit, but Gyeonggi-do has actually decreased this time. It appears that in Gyeonggi-do, the number of sellers has slightly increased, while the number of buyers has decreased. So, buyers in Gyeonggi-do and Incheon have finally started to decrease. So what about Seoul, Gyeonggi-do and Incheon? Buyers have finally begun to decline, and the government has also made an announcement. The stress DSR will be implemented unchanged on September 1st, and for the metropolitan area, a virtual interest rate of 1.2% will be applied instead of 0.75%. So, what does this mean? I believe that the supply and demand situation could improve by the end of August. Why? Starting in September, the virtual interest rate will be applied at 1.2%. What does that mean? Naturally, for those looking to buy a house now, the loan limits will decrease by then. So let's quickly make the most of the current loan limits, while they are still somewhat favorable. I think I will quickly convey the message to buy a house. Therefore, due to the content related to the stress DSR announced by the government on August 20th, it is likely that the supply will improve in the short term in late August. Why? Because we need to make the final connection. However, starting in September, I expect that the data will clearly change. we will observe how these aspects are reflected in the actual data. The statistical data will be released on September 13th, and I plan to create materials based on that. I believe the materials will be updated during the Chuseok period. I think I will record the broadcast around the third week of August, and by that time, the data should noticeably change, since Chuseok is coming up. I think the data that will be released on September 27th may have some limitations. I had planned to give a lecture on September 28th, but I might need to consider postponing it a bit. I believe it would be better to wait until the data is clearer, so I will think about this matter. So, after the Chuseok holiday, we will be able to clearly see what changes in supply and demand occur in September based on the data. Next, looking at regions outside the metropolitan area. I mentioned that the prospects for Ulsan are very good moving forward. And finally, a red light has come on for the supply and demand in Ulsan. The red light has improved, hasn't it? The number of sellers has decreased, while the number of buyers dipped slightly, but has now increased, leading to an improvement in supply and demand. Additionally, the demand for Jeonse is steadily improving, and it ranks first nationwide. Ulsan is in first place. After that, Jeonbuk and Gangwon-do are bending down to the left. So, both sales and Jeons are gradually showing a negative trend. This is what we are currently seeing. And which area did I also predict would improve? It's Chungnam, right? How is the supply and demand for transactions in Chungnam? And finally, the serious red light has come on. The red light is on. The demand for Jeonse is also continuing to improve. Therefore, in the case of Chungnam, the supply volume will keep decreasing. And I believe that Chungnam is also experiencing population growth, making it one of the notable regions among local areas. Except for Sejong, job opportunities are also increasing significantly. For those who want to make a good decision about their own home at the right timing in each region, RichgoTV offers a paid membership. So, if you subscribe to the paid membership, I will rotate through the regions every Tuesday and Thursday, providing analysis based on data about the areas and guiding you on when it would be best to make your moves. So, for those who are more interested, it is good to sign up for the membership. In the case of Gyeongbuk, it is now moving to the left and going up. Therefore, the transaction supply is decreasing while the Jeonse supply has increased a bit. Gyeongbuk will improve next year. Starting from next year, certain regions will see progress. In the case of Cheongbuk or Jeju, they have only moved left and then up. In other words, while the demand for Jeons is improving, the demand for sales is declining in certain areas. As I mentioned earlier, the worst areas so far are Sejong and Daegu. It's really serious. Just look at Sejong, it keeps declining. The supply and demand for transactions in Sejong slightly increased and then decreased even more. The demand for Jeons has also decreased further, and this is due to the high number of new move-ins in Daejeon, which is adjacent to Sejong. Therefore, when analyzing real estate areas, it is essential to make decisions while also considering other data from regions where direct access is possible. In the case of Daegu, it slightly rises to the upper right. If you look at it, it's not very good. The transaction volume is also slightly up. And as I mentioned, there is a strong possibility that Daegu will improve significantly, starting sometime next year. And now, Busan is also trying to rise up, but the extent of that increase is not very large. It looks like this right now, but I will try to extend the period a bit. Since I made it short, it appears to be like a red light, but this is the extent of it. How is Busan doing? The current situation is still not good at all. The sales market is struggling, and the same goes for the Jeons market. So, Sejong and Daegu are the worst, and Busan is still not doing well, while the other regions are relatively okay in the Jeons market. However, the regions that are not doing well include Gwangju, Jeollanam-do, as well as Daejeon, Gyeongsang-nam-do, and Jeju. These areas on the left side are experiencing a really poor trading market. This gives a quick overview of the supply situation nationwide. What are we going to look at this time? This time, we will examine the transaction trend data. So, can you see how the transaction volume has changed? Seoul has only gone up, right? In Seoul, the Jeons prices have increased, sales volume has not risen. In Gyeonggi-do, the sales transactions have decreased. You went to the right of Gyeonggi-do, right? The transaction volume in Incheon has slightly increased. Who is moving the most? It's clearly Sejong, isn't it? So, even though the market situation in Sejong is not good, the transaction volume has significantly increased. You see that last week's prices decreased a lot, so this increased. Also, Jeonse transactions increased a lot. So, sales transactions also rose, and Jeonse transactions increased a lot too. So Sejong has moved significantly over the past week. Then, in the case of Ulsan, it moved considerably to the right, indicating that the transaction volume is quite good. And looking back since 2021, the transactions haven't been too bad. The Jeonse transactions are still being maintained somewhat. What about places like Jeonbuk, Gyeongbuk, Gangwon-do, Jeonnam, or Jeju? They are all bending to the left and downward. In other words, bending to the left indicates that transaction volumes are decreasing, while bending downward indicates that Jeon's transactions are also decreasing. So, regions like Jeonnam, Jeju, and Jeonbuk, as well as areas located below and to the left, are currently not in a good market situation. Why? Since transactions are not very active, we can say that Seoul has the most active transactions, followed by Gyeonggi-do, Incheon, Sejong, Ulsan, North Chungcheong, and South Chungcheong, which can be considered the second tier. This area is classified as the first tier. Gyeonggi-do and Incheon are second tier for their active transactions. Regions like 1.5 gun, Sejong, Ulsan, Chungbuk, and Chungnam seem to be in the 3-gun category, while places such as Jeju, Jeonnam, Busan, Daegu, and Jeonbuk have almost no transactions in either sales or Jeonse, so they would likely fall into the 3-gun category as well. So, looking at this, let's take another look at Seoul. How is the transaction volume in Seoul? It hasn't increased at all, has it? It hasn't increased at all. That's why. It seems that transactions have stagnated. In the case of Gyeonggi-do, the decline in transactions is clearly visible. You can see that transactions are dropping significantly. Incheon, on the other hand, has seen a slight increase. So, what did I just say? The government is planning to increase the stress DSR on August 20th, raising the virtual interest rate in the metropolitan area from 0.75% to 1.2%. I believe this will quickly stimulate some demand in the short term, leading to people buying homes. So, what does that mean? By the end of August, before the implementation of the second stress DSR, the supply situation may improve in the short term. I am thinking along these lines, and I believe it would be good to make judgments while looking at the data. What is clear is this. Now, the transaction trends and supply in the metropolitan area are showing some signs of stabilization, and I believe they may not decline further. Looking back, these events peaked on August 21st, 2023, and prices began to drop from early to mid-October as supply decreases. This phenomenon of falling prices occurs. Therefore, it seems that supply will likely start to decline from early to mid-September. And if that happens, we can expect prices to start falling about a month to a month and a half later, around mid to late October. I will continue to consistently provide the latest real estate information every week. Based on data, thank you. Checklist investment. Check 2.0 has been updated this time, so you can enter the Kiwon Check coupon. Next, as the era of auctions is approaching, we have made it possible for you to experience auctions for free. You can enter Giwon Auction. Now, how do you register the coupon? If you go here, you will find My. If you go to the Richgo home, there is a section called My. You can go there, and I will turn on the Richgo home to explain a bit. Is this an event that is only happening for a month? Yes. If you enter the Richgo home, the PC screen and the app are similar. Here, there is a section called Profile. Go to your profile, and then it will appear here. Then, here you will see the auction products, and it will show where to enter the coupon. Alternatively, here you can enter the coupon code for the membership coupon product. So, for the Kiwon Check, enter Kiwon Check, and for the auction experience, enter Kiwon Auction. I will include this in the comments and the pinned comment. So if you try it out, it will be very helpful for your real estate decision making.